the Podfix Network.
Hello and welcome to episode 127 of the Filmmakers Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk filmmaking, from indie films to studio films and everything in between. How to get them made, how to make them, and how to try not to
make them badly.
Correct, in our very, very humble opinion. I am Giles Alderson, a writer, director and a producer. And on this week's episode, we have the amazing Carolina Groppa. Now, Carolina is an Emmy-nominated producer of the films, including Sylvie's Love, Miss Virginia, and the rather excellent Autism in Love. Myself and fellow host Dom Lamar sit down and have a chat with Carolina all about her producer's life, what it's like on set, the sense of wonder and how you keep it, how you can appreciate the journey, what to do when you are talk of the town, and how to support yourself financially when you're trying to be a filmmaker. She also talks about why she thought about quitting, and she gives you some amazing advice about how you can make it happen. And do you have the type of personality that can produce movies? Her films are out now. Do go support them. There will be a link in the show notes. And also check out her rather brilliant podcast, Angle on Producers. So all that with Carolina is coming up for you. But first of all, I'm sat here in my caravan. We're filming Wolves of War, as you know at the moment, our World War II movie for Picture Perfect and for Signature Entertainment. And I'm sat here with my first AD, Joe Stringer.
Yeah, hello everybody.
Well, we finished week 2 now, haven't we?
Finished week 2, yeah.
How's it been for you as the first AD?
It's been long, been a bit stressful, but I've really enjoyed it, and we're cracking on and getting the film made, which is what we've got to do.
It's exactly what we've got to do. This is Joe Stringer, everyone. He's been quite a brilliant first AD, and he's really kept us ticking along because we needed to, because it's a very tight shoot. As always, when you're making a big action movie like this as well, there is explosions, there is fights, there is gunfights, there's a lot of dialogue. How many pages did we do yesterday? We've got a day off today, so yes. I have no idea what day yesterday was.
Yesterday was 9 pages.
9 pages! Which we included all our lead principals, pretty much.
All of our principals into the first scene, and stunt action at one point, and a shortened day in location. So it was a long one, but we finished with all of our pages in the can. Woohoo! So that's the big thing, really.
But isn't it sometimes that compromise thing you have to do when you set out sort of to make a film in any way, and then your bar is really high. And then you have to compromise, and then you compromise again during the day, and then right at the end of the day you compromise even more by going, get the shots to tell the story. Yeah,
and I think that's, for me, that's what ADing is. It's a lot about managing compromise and kind of trying to weigh up all the factors of any given scene. You might have a certain amount of time on a set dress, you need certain actors to get through the chair, makeup chair in order to be there, to be on camera. You need to light the space, you need to block any action safely, or stunt safely if there's any of that. You need to cover it if you've got lots of people in it, like the amount of shots to, if you've got 5 people standing in a room and then 2 of them move, you then suddenly have a huge amount of shots in order to properly make your edit look any good. So it's weighing up all those factors and trying to make sure that when the editor picks up the footage and the director jumps into the edit room, that they have a film there to make and they can actually tell the story with what we've shot.
And it's true, because you do have to sort of dive in and do make the stand. That's the most important thing. I think that's why it's great that I learned to edit early on, and you can edit, Joe, and I think that helps you when you're in the trenches, literally, and you going, how am I going to get through this scene? Okay, how can it cut from there to there? What's my ins? What's my outs? What do I need?
It's knowing what you don't need as well. A lot of some directors overshoot and get themselves in a bit of a corner because they've shot more than they've needed in the morning, and then leave an afternoon where they don't have enough time to get anything like what they need. Whereas if you have a person who can keep one eye on their edit and be considering, maybe you've shot your scene's 3 minutes and you've shot a master of it, and you know you're going to be on your close-ups for this moment and this moment and this moment, and you don't love your performance in those moments for your wide, but you can move on because you know what you need from the shot, and you've got it, and then you come in for your close-ups, you make sure those sections are covered, and it's a lot of thinking, but that level of thinking allows you to move quickly through your day, allows you to kind of make your scenes much more, make an 18-day movie look like you've shot it for a month.
It's all about preparation, and that's what's important. And we have some fun on the drives in. So Tom drives us in, Tom Tapton, our third AD, and he drives me and Joe to set of Walls of War. And we have, because it's really early when we drive, and it's about a 30-minute drive sometimes, sometimes an hour and a half.
Sometimes an hour and a half.
Because it can be far away. And we have a little thing called Stringer Hour.
We certainly do.
Where Joe Stringer here plays tunes. Chills us out with his don't you? Yeah? You're enjoying that, you're smiling.
I do, and it's mood management, really.
It's mood management.
It's an important job, but
someone has to put me in the mood.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. And it's fun. And I think that is important as well, trying to have a well-run set. So therefore everyone is making sure they're doing the jobs correctly, but at the same time in the right way. Also a little bit of time for fun too. I think it is, especially with actors, they like to wind down and relax, and if everyone's shouting and kicking off, that doesn't put them in the best.
Yeah, and I think when you live in the world of indie filmmaking and lower end budget filmmaking, you're never going to have enough time, you're never going to have enough money. What that means is that there's always going to be the stresses of, can this be done? We have to push really hard, we have to work really hard, you have to push through those hours. But I think where you can keep things fun, respectful, make sure people are happy and feel looked after and feel respected in their job, then you're going to get people who can properly work for you and want to put in those hours. But if you're, I think especially in the world of ADing or producing, when you're needing people to really put in a shift for you, if people feel like you're looking out for them and caring about their job, caring about allowing them to do it properly, then you can get people to hopefully, I don't know, do their job the best they can.
I love that. It was so beautiful. That was Joe Stringer, everyone. He is the first AD on this film, Walls of War. Thank you for joining us for that brief interlude.
Thank you very much for having me.
So we giving some patrons shout outs to our wonderful Patreons, our main big ones, because at the moment our Patreon is getting bigger. We have even more behind the scenes on it for you. And for those of you who really enjoyed the Ben Wheatley podcast last week, at the moment on our Patreon, we have some more from Ben Wheatley. Some really cool little sound bites that we wanted to keep just for our Patreon listeners. So the link to that is in the show notes, but find us on Patreon, the Filmmakers Podcast, and come and join the tribe. Shout outs to our top end Patreon subscribers, Kevin Pybus and Marli J Monroe, and our new Patreons, Jason McCoglin and Josh Pooley. Welcome to the team. Right, let's get to it. This is this week's episode with Carolina Groppa and myself and co-host Dom Lenoir. Enjoy.
Enjoy, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
How's your day? It must be early there where you are.
It's early, yeah. It's 11, so I'm into it. I'm into the day here, but I've been up since like 6 a.m. Just got a lot going on this week, and I'm actually leaving town next week to start a movie in Atlanta. So I'm just kind of like, oh my God. It just dawned on me that I'm going to be leaving home for 3 months, like last night. So I'm just like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's like exciting, but also like my bed and my pillows.
And everything. 3 months. Where you going to Atlanta? What is it you're shooting?
It'll be my first project, like my long, feature project back post-pandemic. So I'm excited, but scared, all the things.
All those wonderful things.
Not scared.
Yeah,
is like
I know,
the wrong
apprehensive.
word, but it's just like anxious rather. Just like,
yes.
And it's a place I've never really been before. Atlanta, obviously, you guys may know, is a huge market out here. So I've obviously know all about it, and I hear Atlanta is a wonderful town, but there's just that like, it's not my people. I've built my relationships in LA for 15 years. So it'll be great. I'm excited, but I'm also like, just getting everything ready to move temporarily. It's wild.
I'm excited for you. It's that weird, wonderful buzz, isn't it, of going, because I've shot, pretty much all my features away from home, apart from some part. The last one was in London, so I was commuting, and I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy not being I like being on location where you go home and you're in your hotel room and you're just thinking about the next day's filming.
Interesting.
When you come home, you've got your family around, you've got the kids around you, you've got to dive into real life.
So you like to be in the vortex. You like to be in the vortex of
I'd
the
like
experience.
To be in it.
You don't like to be tapped out.
I mean, I think it's fun being on location when. I mean, like for my film, it was sort of down in Devon, which is, and it was just a very unusual, sort of mysterious, atmospheric place. There was like these sort of black mountains everywhere, and these rivers running through it, and it was almost like I was getting into character by way of what I was sort of surrounded with, on and off film. So it was kind of cool, but there's certainly times when you just want to go back to your own bed and have your own sort of creature comforts at home.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's a champagne problem. So
yeah, it's champagne problem. I think I'm used to the Scouts and being kicked out of my house constantly when I was a kid. I enjoy being out. So
but that wasn't the Scouts.
No, that was just you. No, I love exploring the world. I mean, when I travel, I like to usually travel by myself, in fact, and I like to just, I don't care so much for the touristy things. I like to explore a town on foot and do the walking tours and catch like a locals 4 o'clock. Like, what are they doing on a 4 p.m. on a Tuesday? Like, that's the kind of stuff I live for. So I love the part where I get to immerse myself in another place for a couple of months. It's really exciting. But yeah, I think I just have never, all the features I've done, I've actually been in LA. So it'll be interesting. It's definitely like, some people love it, some people hate it. Some people really get that homesickness and they do want to have, they have a family. They do want to come home to that or see their kid or see their husband or their wife or whatever. And some people like that, I guess, circusy kind of vibe, especially if you have the luxury of getting maybe your partner or your family to come visit you or live with you, then I think that would be really fun. But, ask me when I get there, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
Must give it a week or two.
Yeah, and so you feel then. But it's true. I think going away as a producer or a director on a shoot is an exciting time and it is fun, but it can be apprehensive. And I think maybe that's the word, apprehensive, isn't it?
Apprehensive, yeah. And until it's like going to camp, right? Until you know you're gonna like your bunk mates, it's kind of like, oh, what if they suck? But once you get there and people are awesome, then you're like, all right, this is great. And then you can't win. And then you finish a production, you come back home, and then you're depressed because now you missed it's like you just can't win. But that's life. Like, that's such a good problem to have,
It is. And we're in that privileged position where we do get to make films, and it is amazing. There's no question about it. But you do, when you're there, you kind of miss home. And when you're at home, you miss there, and that bubble will never come back again. And that's what I find fascinating about filmmaking.
Well, yeah, I think it's, you have to constantly work towards being present. And I think it's hard for a lot of producers because we, by nature, by default, are thinking about the future constantly or reflecting on the past to think, how do we do this better? How do we not in our work lives? And I think, at least for me, like, it's challenging for that to not bleed over into all areas of my life. And then to be like, so in the experience sometimes that you're not even that present. Sometimes I don't even realize what I've done until I'm on the other side of it. And I zoom out and people go, whoa, that was a really cool experience you had. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. That was amazing. I was so in it. I was just doing the thing, Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think you definitely need to take those moments when you are on set. I mean, there's obviously going to be some of those days where you're unbelievably tired. You haven't had enough sleep. All the pressure's on. You've got, horrible deadlines to make. You're literally just sort of making it through the day. But there's other days when it's just those like 5 or 10 minutes on your lunch break when you might be in a really nice location, or, when you've got half an hour sort of downtime. And sometimes taking those moments to have a bit of peace of mind and unwind and, enjoy it, give you that kind of strength to go back in and get stuck in again in the film. I think you have to build in that balance of lightening up on yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
How do you do that then? How do you do that?
Yeah, I want to know. Oh, how do I do that? I want to know how you guys do that.
Well, interesting, on my last feature, I remember the producer came over to me. I was directing the last one, and the producer came over to me and he said, Giles, just look around. And he said, just take in the moment. And I was in the middle. I literally had maybe 2 minutes left of the day. I had about 27 shots to do. I had 2 people in a grave. There was blood, there was mud, there was everything everywhere. And
moment.
Yeah, this moment you chose to say, just look around. You know, we had this beautiful, huge light set up, beautiful mansion house, grave in the... I just went, I can't right now, Dean. I'm in the middle of this. And it was just like, that actually wouldn't have been great if I could have just taken that moment. And just gone, actually, what we're achieving here. But I don't know, is there a way that you can manage to compartmentalize yourself when you're on set and have those moments of appreciation, or is there just not time?
Yeah, I mean, I think as I've gotten older and have had more experiences under my belt, you start to realize when you're on the other side of the experience how quickly it all goes by. And if you have developed that project or spent years trying to get it off the ground, really those 30 days, however many days on set, are really precious compared to the rest of the journey, right, of making that thing. So I think it is important to just take a step back and find those little moments for yourself, whether it is, I mean, sometimes even just like, you know, you're peeing in a portable bathroom and you're like, yeah, this is not the best way to pee, but man, like if you open this door, you're in paradise, you know, shooting a movie, or the thing is real, you're there. It's like you've thought about it, you've planned it, everything is so theoretical. It's just like emails and conversations, you know, until you get to set, it feels like. And so I think for me, I never want to lose that sense of like wonder and wow and just being awestruck by the fact, like you said, that it's such a privilege we get to do this. And regardless of the size of your set or however impressive it looks, just to be like, we put this here. We found the people, we found the things, we found the vendors, we made the schedule, we created this. We created this opportunity in this moment in time so that this art can be brought to life. And that, regardless of what you're making, I think that's magical. So I think 2020 pandemic, not that we're over it, but really has taught me to just appreciate the journey so much more. And I always harp on this, and on my podcast, I always talk about it. And people who listen to my show and then meet me after are like, oh, you really are like this. Like you talk about this all the time at work. I'm like, yeah, it's not a character. Like that's literally how I operate. But if you don't take those moments for yourself, no one's going to really give them to you. And ultimately, the only thing we have is the experience of making the thing. So take care of yourself as much as you can, because those 30 days, however many days, are precious. They're hard, but they also are going to be over very quickly. And I think if you can still find that magic within you to just be impressed by the fact that you get to do this and how many other people are sitting in an office wishing they could do that. Like it's really magical. And I think it just comes back to gratitude, really, and not to get, woo-woo or like become a, motivational speaker on the show. But that's really what it comes back to me towards. It's like when I reflect back on my career and where I'm at today and how my path has unfolded, it's been really hard, and a lot of those credits, I've worked my ass off for all of them. I've earned those stripes, but I'm proud of all of it. I'm proud of the person it's made me and the producer it's made me, and it makes me a better collaborator to everybody. So I can really just kind of like sigh of release and kind of feel like I made it in that sense. Not that you ever arrive, but I've made it in the sense that like I'm able to create work I care about with people I care about that hopefully means something to other people. And that's ultimately what it's about. So
yeah,
that's beautiful.
And I think if you have those kind of people around you that are that special, it doesn't necessarily need to feel like work. Even though you've got challenges coming up, you've got people around that are keen to solve the problems. It should be kind of fun and creative, like, at least a good portion of, the journey. I guess my sort of philosophy is that, especially when preparing for the next day's shoots, if I've done the sort of general prep for the whole film, well in advance, and I'm aware of what's going on the next day, I think sometimes you have to give yourself space to get a good night's sleep. The amount of times I've seen people on set and they're so tired because they've been like, going over and over and over millions of details. And sometimes it's better to have a sharp mind and a bit of rest and be able to take the problem on as it comes and deal with it in 5 minutes than it is to sort of be in a state of complete stress throughout the whole day, not able to make any decisions.
I agree. Lack of sleep is real, especially as you get older.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
No comment, Giles.
No comment from my side. What I found on my first film, I was so stressed and I was so worried about it. It was a studio movie as well, and I was like, I've got to impress. It's got to be right. It's got to be the. What I did, and I'm so glad I did, was I did a video blog every night of how I felt. It was like a therapy session for me. I could just get everything out, and then I could talk about what I was going to do the next day, and then I could sleep, because otherwise it would just be spinning around in your head. But I was putting it down as if the camera was a person and just saying, this happened, this is terrible, and what am I going to do about that? And as soon as I put it all down, it was like, all right, you've said it now. And I'd highly recommend that to anyone who's in a stressful position. Just put it on video, because then it's real.
Well, then you have a really cool, documentation of a moment of a part of your story that we forget. You forget that stuff that was keeping you up until 3 a.m, because ultimately it doesn't matter.
Yes, it doesn't matter. No, you're right.
So,
and if it doesn't work out, you've got an amazing documentation like The Room.
Right.
It's just me crying into the camera going, this is terrible, don't know what I'm doing. That's amazing. You were born in Brazil, or you were certainly raised there until you were about 9. Can you remember what your first cinematic love was? Did you fall in love with cinema in Brazil, or was it when you moved to LA?
I think cinema for me really felt like when I came to America, because I was born in Brazil, and I remember growing up watching television. And the first show that I was like mesmerized by was The Wonder Years. I don't know if that ever made its way over the pond.
It made its way to us. Okay. Fred Savage and everything.
Oh my God! But it was dubbed. It was like Fred Savage dubbed in Portuguese. It's such an all-American show now looking back, but I don't know, there was just something about it that felt romantic and nostalgic, and nostalgic. There's this like, and I didn't even know what that meant, because that was so far from my culture, but I just love that show. And I think that was my first exposure to that kind of storytelling and to characters. But ever since I've discovered my passion for story, it really has always been features. Like, I go to watch a movie and I feel like every single part of that experience. I'm the kind of person that has to sit till the credits end, because depending on the movie, I'm just like, I need to catch my breath, from the experience, where like I'll go see movies with my dad, it would be the saddest drama I've ever seen. And he's like, well, the guy dies, let's go, and I'm just like, oh, how could you this person, we just felt them and their journey, So I very much have been this person who really felt this yearning. And I remember I would sit in the theater and be like, I got to get away, find a way to do this. And for me at the time, I thought that was acting. I was like, I got to experience this. I got to give this. I got to somehow be a part of this. And I didn't know what that meant. But my intro into the arts and filmmaking and was through acting and theater acting, and something I still very much love. It's what got me out here to LA, actually, was I came out to pursue the acting thing.
Right.
And then found producing as a means to create opportunity for myself, and realized I was just quite good at it. Not that I was an okay actor, I'd like to think, but I think you have to have a certain passion for it. And I just loved acting, but I hated the actor lifestyle, and you kind of have to sign up for that here. And I just didn't want to do it. I was like, if I can do it on my own terms, awesome. But if not, like, I don't know if I want to be at the helm of or at the whimsy of someone else's value of me and my worth, especially as a woman who ages or whatever, in the industry. So anyway, producing came calling, and it was just, it all made sense. I was like, oh, I've been this person my whole life. I didn't know there was a job title that matched who I've always been. So that's cool.
That makes total sense, because when you see films as a kid, you don't see how it was made. In fact, you don't even know there's cuts. You just believe people were saying all the lines in a row and someone captured it on camera.
Yeah.
That's what you think. But actually,
exactly.
So it makes sense that your first thing would be, well, to be part of that, I must need to be an actress, because that makes total sense. My route in was acting as well, and it was falling in love with the other side of filmmaking. Understanding producing and directing, that just went, oh my gosh, this is incredible, and getting a passion for it that was like, I don't need to be judged. I don't need to be vilified. I don't have to worry about how I look all the time and present myself. I can do that in a way that is to do with the job. to do with making films rather than getting a job on how you look or how you act or how you say lines or how your hair flops. How did you go from sort of doing the acting thing to going, right, I'm going to produce? What was your journey there, and how was it a piece that you were going to be in, you were trying to create, and then you fell into the producing kind of thing because no one else was doing it? And what happened with that project? How did that help you move forward?
So this is 2009, which was like not the best year to be in Los Angeles. I moved out here in 2006. We had a writer's strike shortly thereafter. Right? Yeah. And then we had the housing crisis that happened shortly in like 2008. So 2009 was not a great year. But I had already 3 years under my belt, and I couldn't understand why I had already invested 3 years and I hadn't been discovered and I wasn't famous. It was like, what is this? I was just very like every 19-year-old who moves to LA. So I got close to moving home because I had done the auditioning thing, and man, it was so hard and so different back then. These were the days where people could tell you things like, "Oh, we don't know what to do with you because you're ethnically ambiguous. Like you're not Latina enough, but you're not white enough." Like casting directors would say this to me. So it felt like there really wasn't that person who was like, "You've got it, kid. I'm going to help you get in all the doors." You're just kind of like the bottom of the barrel. Really is really where we all start, unless you're lucky to get a leg in at a higher, part of the industry. But anyway, so I got close to moving home, and my mom was like, "Well, if you've tried everything," and I was like, "Well, I guess I haven't tried producing my own work." And I wasn't really a writer, and I didn't really understand cameras. I didn't want to go through all of that. So I love the theater, and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to produce a play. I'm going to find a play that's been written, and I'm going to find a small cast, really contained play that I can do. And I'm going to play the lead, and I'm going to raise $20,000, and I'm just going to do it. And I didn't know how. And I was like, I'm just going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I did.
Fuck it. Yeah.
That's quite a reasonable amount of money to raise as well.
And I don't know why. And that was completely like, I just said 20 because it sounded like the right number. I had no idea or research on any of this, by the way.
That's how you make budgets. You just pick a number.
At the time, I was like, sure, 20K sounds good. Like someone had told me, stages in LA cost about this much. And so I was like, I did the math. But just, it was one of those serendipitous things where I have this metaphor where, whereas acting had felt very difficult and challenging, like boarded up houses in a horror movie that say, "Get out, don't come." Like producing then all of a sudden became like a wonderland with lush, green lawns where everybody was like, "Welcome, Carolina, we've been waiting for you," and I was just like, this is easy comparatively. Yeah. Not that producing is easy. It's so hard. It's definitely the hardest of the things, as you guys know. But at the time, I was just blown away. So I produced the play while working 3 part-time jobs. I was the lead. I nearly killed myself because that's what you do when you have that energy in your 20s.
Yeah.
And
energy. What's energy?
I know, right? Now it's like, I know. It's real. My parents used to tell me that, and I was like, no, just you wait and see. Yeah. And it just hits you, right? But no, so that really was kind of what set me on that path. And I thought, well, maybe I'll get better representation. I'll get discovered by a casting director. But really, everybody came up to me and was just impressed that I had put the show together, and I didn't know what I was doing. And they were like, if you put this together not knowing what you're doing, imagine what you could do if you knew what you were doing. And so I just listened to that. I was like, there's something here. And when I went through that experience, I was like, oh, this is producing. Like, I've just been doing this my whole life. Like, this is just who I am. Maybe it's so innate to who I was already. And it made sense. And so I just started learning by leaning into every opportunity that came my way. I said, yes, if a friend had a short, I would do it. If somebody had a commercial and they needed a PA, I would go. If a producer needed it, I just did. Yeah, I said yes to literally everything while juggling all the jobs. And that paid off. Some years later, I got a job working for a doctor as like just a survival job, who was in the autism field. And he knew I had this passion for producing. And one day he was like, hey, I have this idea for this, I want to do this thing with adults on the spectrum and romantic relationships. And you've been producing, right? You think you could produce a doc? And I was like, yeah. Figure it out.
I got that in my belt.
Yeah, it's in my luck of that
one. Can't
one.
be that difficult. And I did. And again, I leaned in. Did I have the burning desire to produce docs? That I didn't even know anything about autism, but it turned out that that combo was actually really great for that particular project, because it meant neither myself nor the director had an agenda because we didn't really know anything about autism. We just were like curious about the subject. And that project went on to become Emmy nominated, and we sold to Netflix, which at the time was a huge deal. And
still a huge deal.
Still a huge
deal, right? But like,
we're going to take that one away from you.
This is before Netflix was making content. So it was like, there was no other, that was the place, But yeah, so that's like a sort of quick overview. I don't want to take up too much of your time with that, but like just top line of how I jump-started things. But many years of struggle in between. It wasn't like,
of course, crushing
it and thriving. It was like, I'd say it's taken me, it hasn't been until the last 3 to 4 years where I can say, no, I make a living as a producer now, and I don't have to like, build IKEA furniture to help offset my expenses.
I think it's really interesting what you said about sort of waiting for a golden ticket, because there's definitely if you're sort of going your own path, it's very difficult if you're sort of hoping for that one kind of break. And it's really interesting that in a way your break, you could say, sort of happened just by your attitude being incredibly positive and throwing yourself into stuff and being open to an opportunity with the autism film that kind of caught you unexpectedly, and in a way that you could look at that as your golden ticket, but not in the way that people traditionally envisions what that kind of career leap might be.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important when you're starting out to like I said, leaning into what is accessible, what is around you, but also then being mindful to periodically check in with yourself, so you're not just getting swept up in someone else's version of your life because you're really good at doing that thing, and all of a sudden you've been doing paperwork for 5 years and you're like, wait, but I wanted to be a director. How did I get here? I think it's easy to get caught in that because there is that version of like golden handcuffs even within the film industry, right? Where you can get stuck in these parts of it where it's not really where you want to be. It's a stepping stone, but maybe that leap never comes. But I think the scary thing is you constantly have to be leapfrogging and you constantly have to be asserting yourself. That's the other part of it. Like, no one came to me, with the exception of the autism guy who wasn't in the business, and that's the only reason he came to me. It was like, hey, you've been doing this. Come over here. Let me give you this opportunity. I had to ask for every opportunity. I had to say, no, I've been doing this for 3 years now. I'm at this level. If you want to hire me, this is my rate and this is what I do now. And you have to, it's like, the fake it till you make it, I don't subscribe to that because it creates this idea of being disingenuous, which I don't believe. I think it's more about knowing when you're ready to make a jump, right? Knowing when you're actually ready that you've mastered some part of the process where you go, okay, I'm comfortable here and I need to get uncomfortable again. And that's the leap, right? Is to say, okay, maybe I've never production supervised a feature. I've never production managed a thing. I've been a coordinator, but I've seen it enough. I've been around it enough that I think I could take that next step and actually deliver and be good to the person hiring me and to myself, right? Every turn in my career, like that's how every opportunity has come, is me saying, hey, hi, hello, this is me. Here's what I've been doing. I'm not just sitting around. I'm doing all of this stuff and I'm grateful for the stuff I've gotten to do, but I want to do this next level of the thing. And you could be the answer to that next level of the thing. What if an opportunity comes around and you give me an opportunity to do that thing? And oftentimes people said yes, like you said, just having that attitude. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's believing on the one hand, believing that you are capable of making stuff at the level that you want to be making stuff when you're not. And I think on the other hand, it's having the responsibility to really make sure that you're doing everything in your power, if you're given that chance, to make something way beyond what you've done before, and to not let people down. I think those two kind of elements are really great for pushing yourself beyond your boundaries and getting those chances.
And it's wonderful that you're also saying, look, you can go out there and do it. You've just got to be proactive. And you're a perfect example of that. And you're going, well, look, I wasn't sat on my bum waiting for an acting role. I went out and got stuff myself. And then that led to you doing something else. And keep going, keep finding your journey and your path. Oh gosh, Robbie's calling. Oh my God. I'm going to have to get this. He won't stop calling if I don't. Hey, Robbie! Lovely to hear from you.
Hey, Giles. Hey. Yeah. So I went to that wedding the other week.
Oh, yeah. How'd it go?
It was okay, yeah.
Oh, good. All right.
One of them's now dead. I mean, it's good news for the other person because obviously they get all their Bitcoin.
You got them
proceeds.
Bitcoin in the end.
Yeah. So that's a silver lining.
Yeah. And why are you ringing me to tell me this?
Well, because I'm, going to the funeral next week, and I thought, you always give me such great advice. I thought you might have some advice for what kind of speech to do at the funeral of the person who's dead.
Yeah. It was my granddad actually gave me some sound advice on his deathbed.
Oh yeah.
He said, always invest in good speakers.
Sound advice.
Do you know, there's a website that tracks dead coins. Talking of Bitcoin, there's nearly 2,000 deceased cryptocurrencies right now.
How can a cryptocurrency be deceased?
Because they're projects that were abandoned or they stopped being developed or turned out to be scams.
Right.
And their websites are down.
Right, but Bitcoin's not like that. Bitcoin's alive and well.
It is. And you know who has almost 7 years of experience in the industry with a dedicated customer service team on hand to help?
It's going to be those Coin Corner guys, isn't it?
It is Coin Corner. And if you sign up to Coin Corner now and use the voucher code FILMBTC, you can get your Bitcoin journey started with some free sats.
Amazing. Well, okay, but how does that help me with my issue with the funeral speech?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, well, to help you when you're there, I suppose you need to know how to make holy water, right?
I guess that might help.
You boil the hell out of it. But good luck, Robbie. All the best. I hope that the person who didn't die is, you like them. And can't believe we did a whole skit on someone dying.
Thanks, Giles. I'll try that holy water trick. See if that goes down well in the church. See ya.
Bye. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry about that. He's so insensitive. Anyway, where were we? How did you then, when the wonderful doctor said, let's make autism in love, how did you then go about it? What was your process? How did you manage to raise the funds? Did they all come through the doctor? How did it happen? And how did you piece this documentary together?
So I said, all right, I don't know how to make a doc, but what are the documentaries that have come out recently that I respond to, that I think are beautiful, that could be a version of this? And I just emailed those filmmakers and I said, hey, I'm this person and here's what I'm doing. And I like your project and I'm doing research to put together my first doc. And I'd love to just take 30 minutes out of your time and ask you some very specific questions, which I think is an important note because I get hit up a lot to hey, can I just pick your brain and learn about your producing journey? And I'm like, here's 8 podcasts where I've talked about my producing journey. If you have specific questions, I'm 100% down to help guide you, but I can't just yap away. I just don't have that time anymore, so
it's frustrating when people ask that and that they haven't done the base research on stuff.
It is unfortunate. And that's also for me, it's like I don't want to give that person my time of day, and I will gladly answer and go, here's all the podcasts I've been a guest on. Please, if you still feel like there's a question you have after you listen to 8 hours of content, by all means hit me up. But
absolutely. By then you'll know me pretty well.
Yeah, you'll be tired of hearing the same story over and over again.
I covered that in subcategory B 15 minutes into
but no, I think it's that. It's I knew that I didn't want to just be like, how did you make this project? Because it would have been where do I begin to tell you, right? So I had very specific questions. And I knew from the research I had done that a lot of the issues that docs who were independently financed ran up against was that they run out of money, right? They don't think about posts. And I was like, okay, don't want to do that. And I don't want this to be 10 years of my life. I don't want to be shooting this on weekends for 10 years. So I told the doctor, I was like, I've done the research and here's how we make this. We're going to have 1 year from start to finish where we shoot this. And whatever we get in the can in that 1 year, that's the documentary we'll make. And we just hope it turns out great. Maybe it becomes, we don't know what it's going to become, but that's the plan. And that's the best way to keep costs low, I told him, to have me and a director who is exclusive to this project, because we can actually live off of this for a year, but we can't live off of this, forever. And more importantly, I was like, this particular subject matter is sensitive and we're catching it at the right time. If we wait 5 years, we're going to miss the window.
Yeah.
Someone else is going to have done this particular subject matter because I, being his assistant, I had done the research and I was like, wait a minute, there's literally nothing out there. No one's talked. There's no book. There's no article. There's nothing on the subject of adults on the spectrum. and how what romantic relationships looks like for them. It's all about parents worrying and fearing if their kid will ever find love, which is a fair point of view. But like, at any rate, so I knew that there was something there. And so that's how I went about it. And so I told him how much we would need. And I said, this is how I spoke to a lot of people, short answer, right? And got a lot of information and would ask a friend who would then connect me to this other person. It took a long time. It took like 6 months to get all this information put together properly. But then I knew, I was like, here's the least amount we could do it for if we do this plan, and we can go raise money. But if we do, just know that this is how the pools work, of like the investor pool and the producer pool. And if we have an investor on, like that person may want to be creatively involved. And it's a question, do we want to deal with that as producers? Because he was an executive producer on it. And ultimately, he decided he didn't want to risk it. It was his baby, and he ended up financing the whole thing. But we had to go through that very tumultuous exercise where I was like, if you don't let me know what you want to do, like I need to go take an in-house position job and the director's not going to be available. We need to start on this date. So it was that. And then taking those 6 months in conjunction with that to really understand what autism was and to introduce ourselves to the communities here in Los Angeles, because we didn't want to just roll up guns blazing like, hey, we're Hollywood, we're here to make a movie about you, like we wanted people to trust us, that we had the integrity to be dealing with a very sensitive subject matter. And that just takes time to build that trust. And so we spent the time doing both of those things simultaneously, so that when we were ready to hit the ground running, we did. And we shot over the course of 9 months. We also had an editor start at the 6-month mark, so they could be cutting before our period ended, to be like, oh, you need to go back and get this piece, you're missing this. Like, I just knew we needed to have all those components from talking to people who had been gracious enough to share with me their lessons learned. And that's how we put it together. And then, very, very grateful that the subject matter, unfortunately, resonated with a lot of people. So we ended up getting a lot of our posts donated, which is what allowed us to keep our numbers to what it ended up being, which is super, super low, tiny. And then the project went on to do incredible things.
The Tribeca Film Festival, that's where it premiered there, right? I mean, how incredible.
World premiere.
Wow.
It was amazing. But it was one of those moments too, where I remember being like, wow, like this is awesome, right? Like we all dream of a moment where you premiere your movie at a festival like this and you're the talk of the town for 5 days, but it ends. It's a very short-lived experience. And I was like, man, if you are constantly chasing this high, and if this is why you're in the game, like you're going to be really disappointed, because it takes so long to maybe get this moment. And of course, if you get the moment, enjoy it, relish it, be present for it. But I've been chasing that high ever since. And that was 2015, and I've done a lot of incredible work, but to be a part of something that I've helped soup to nuts bring to life, to be in a room packed with audiences and parents of adults on the spectrum, children on the spectrum, who come up to you and shake your hand after and say, your movie has made me feel like this is possible. Like, cool. What? Like, that's why we do this, right? We to get that human interaction. And oftentimes with film, you don't know how your work is going to impact someone. And so to get that feedback in real time, that's what made that experience of autism and love for me just so magical. And I feel immensely grateful that that was the start of my producing career. Like, how lucky I am,
That's incredible. Yeah. I mean, I think there's so many times when I've been in the cinema and I've watched a certain film, and it's just been one of those kind of life-changing moments of watching something when it just seems to answer all your questions in life, or a struggle you're going through. And if you can be the person that's giving an audience that, there's no greater kind of gift you can do. It's such a worthwhile venture.
I agree.
Coming from a bit of a narrative background, going into documentary, what was it like for you in terms of the actual process of making that, and how what you'd planned in advance versus the editing process for a documentary? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, it's so funny how much docs have evolved, but at 2012-ish, when we were making this, that sort of, I think Jira Dreams of Sushi had just come out, and that was the first doc, I think, that showed people like, wait a minute, you can shoot something beautifully and stylized food can be shot this way, not like the Food Network. You can have a character piece on a chef. Like, docs were really informational and incredible up until that point. But that doc, I think, marks it when it changed and it became cinematic. And then everybody was like, we want a cinematic documentary. We want this to be cinematically shot. And then it started teetering into narrative territory. And now it's like sometimes, indiscernible between the two. But we knew we wanted to approach it like that. We knew we wanted it to be portraits of these people, and that, you cannot put a production end date on someone's life. So we were going to get what we were going to get. And we spent 9 months with 12 different sets of couples and individuals, knowing that we had to follow the cookie crumbs where they were going to take us. And we just got gold. We got some incredible things that were happening in those people's lives at that time. And they allowed us to come in and be a part of that experience. And so once we started seeing, hey, like this is going on with this couple and this kid is really interesting, we just started to follow that more and start to carve out what is the narrative. And then when we ended up editing it, we realized there were really too many characters on a feature-length doc. It becomes like too much to follow. So we knew we had to keep it to like 3 central characters. And so it became this beautiful piece on, we had a young kid in his 20s who was still kind of finding himself. We had a couple who were in their 30s who were, taking that step to get married. And then we had an older man, Steven, who was, I think, in his 50s, who had been married for 20 plus years and a very, almost nonverbal on the spectrum. And you go, so we kind of ran the gamut of like the different stages of a relationship as well. And that helped carve the structure of the film for us. But that's the thing with docs that is terrifying but beautiful, is that it tells you what it wants to be. It tells you the blueprint, but you also have to be very discerning, because you can make, with any doc, you can make like 18 different versions of that movie. Well, with any movie, right? One could argue, but with docs specifically, because you have so much footage. And it's like, where do you point the camera? How will you cut something? All of that changes the game completely. So yeah, we had a very long editing process, but we had an incredibly talented editor, Alex O'Flynn, who we just got lucky to get him when we got him, and he's gone on to do big stuff now, but he just felt really passionate about it. And, everybody worked for peanuts. So it was just a magical process altogether.
Well, you mentioned there about having that golden window. You got talk of the town. Looking back now, would you have done something differently when you were the talk of the town? Would you have had other things ready, perhaps, or not? Yeah, you would. Okay.
I would have, but I had heard from many people like, "Oh, you're going to go to a festival. Everybody's going to ask what your next thing is. Have a next thing." But I just didn't have one. I couldn't force it. I didn't have anything. It just wasn't there. And so all I had was a calling card to say, I have myself and my hustle and my desire to continue to learn and grow. Hopefully that's enough. But I was able to leverage the success of the project to open doors for myself in other ways. And also what I did after that, docs notoriously, you don't make a lot of money. And I think talking about money and your finances to support yourself as a producer or as someone who's working production is very important, not often talked about. And so, I made very little, and I was like, all right, I need to go make some money now, guys. And I also want to learn how I work within a production team, because I was alone. I did literally everything. I was my PA, I was my accountant. I had to teach myself all those skills. And now that I have other people to do those jobs for me, it's like, I'm so grateful. But I've really touched every rung of that ladder, even ones I didn't want to get where I'm at. So, but yeah, like I worked, then I did commercials for a while, and I got to learn true production and paperwork and what insurance certs mean and how to properly do POs and like how to deal with clients, all that stuff that is somewhat different. It's a different shade, but it all is part of lives under the same umbrella. So I got to make a little bit of money and really seat myself into production where I wasn't like the point. I got to be a part of a team, and that was very informative to learn how I wanted to be and who I didn't want to be, the kind of leader I didn't want to be when I got there, and to see what was possible. And so all of it is copy for your life. And I think copy for who you're going to be if you look at it that way. And that's how I've always tried to look at it. And look, I don't want people to think it's like sunshine and rainbows and I'm just like this positive person and everything just flows to me. Like, you guys are catching me at a moment where for 6 months, great things have been happening. But there have been periods where that hasn't been the case. And I've thought about quitting because it's really hard and you don't make a lot of money and it's a thankless job, and you invest all of yourself into a creative team and then they go on ride off into the sunset with the studio and they leave you behind. There's a lot of heartbreak. It's really hard. And so I started the podcast, particularly for that, angle on producers, because I resented that people started to look at what I've built because of social media and think that it's been sunshine and rainbows. And it's just been like me hanging out with celebs and going to film festivals or whatever. They think like I wanted them to understand, the realities of what it takes to do this kind of work and who you have to be to do this kind of work, the stamina that is required for your soul to sustain the massive blows that comes with being a part of this business. I think that's important.
I think it's always been something that I've like really believed in, and is the idea of, and I've spoken to so many directors and a couple that have been on the podcast have said stuff like, every single day, no matter how sure my project is, there's that feeling that things are all going to go horribly wrong and it's not going to get off the ground, or I'm never going to make another film again. And then you sort of compare that against how their career looks on paper. And, I think a lot of filmmakers spend huge amounts of time, wondering about whether stuff's going to, happen or whether it's going to be delayed. And they have setbacks and projects that they wanted to go that take longer. And from the outside, because of social media, it's very easy to look at other filmmakers in your bubbles or in the sort of the wider social world, and it looks like everyone's doing amazingly.
Of course.
And it's all just happened
overnight. That's the highlight reel, right? Like no one's posting about the shit.
Exactly. And you just have to be aware of that people don't show that, but I think everyone goes through it, and it's just that, whether you think about giving up, it's just whether you actually do or not. And that's
everyone goes through it. I go through it. I have existential crises every month, probably. And every producer I've had on my podcast, people who've won Academy Awards, people who are super impressive, people who you may stalk and think they've got it all figured out, who are rich, who's got it all, they too shared the same feeling, and that's what I've learned, which is very inspiring, but also depressing, because you're like, oh, so you're telling me that no matter how high you climb, it never really gets easier. It's always a version of this, right? But then it gives you the option to go, if this is as good as it gets, and maybe the difference is like the money or the access or the exposure, is that enough for you? Is that going to be enough? Is that what you want to do for the rest of your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that I've always looked at it is, can I imagine not doing it? And that's never sort of weighed up more strongly than the sort of horrendous pain of getting projects off the ground.
Yeah,
it hurt too much. I think you fall in love with this business and you fall in love hard, and you do. When you're not doing it, it hurts. It really does. It is like an ex when you're not doing it, or you're prepping projects constantly. I mean, I don't know about you, Carolina, but I have so many projects. I know Dom does too, and this one goes for a little bit, and you're talking with the producer about that one, or this one goes and you're talking to the director about that one, and suddenly another one from the past starts moving again, or you're in the middle of post on another one. It's a really weird process where and I think what you were saying there, Dom, makes total sense. Any minute now it could all fall apart, or it could all just happen. Like you're going off to Atlanta now. It's the prep
you're always on that balance, right?
That balance, could all fall down. I say when I first started and I only had one project, it hurt so much when it all just fell apart. It hurt I cried for days. Oh, and
God, the heartbreak.
Yeah, it was a heartbreak.
No, it's real. It's real.
It is real. And I think when people are starting out, to know that we all have been there. We haven't just landed on our feet. We've worked our asses off to get here, and it's obvious you have as well.
I had the good fortune last year of when the pandemic hit, for the first time in my life, I had a career coach, which I like living in LA. I'm like, oh God, it's like everybody and their mother is a life coach or career coach. But this woman, Laverne McKinnon, who's now been on my show, she is also a producer, and she started coaching because she realized there wasn't a place where producers could talk to other producers about the grief we experience in our business that sometimes our significant others or our family and friends can't quite grasp the gravity of, like losing a project or an actor passing when you've waited 6 months, like all of this stuff, right? Because we care so much. And she was the first person to kind of put it in that frame for me, and it just made so much sense. And to see someone even at her level with a first look deal and very fancy, blah, 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 still struggle with that, still feel that, still have people not return her emails or her phone calls, or, you know, it's really eye-opening and humbling. And I think it's important that the journey can feel very singular a lot of times for independent producers, but to know we're not alone, and that at any given moment, there's another producer who's feeling what you're feeling, going through what you're going through, whether that's, you know, too much time on set and not taking care of their bodies, or not having worked for months and wondering what the hell, or, you know, on the brink of like winning an Academy Award. Like at any given moment, there's someone sharing that life experience with you who gets it on a level that I've learned other people just can't quite understand. Because like you said, what we do is so unique, and it's such a unique world. It's such a unique field that you just have to understand it on its like deepest molecular level to even talk about it, you know?
Totally.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
It can, it can be heartbreaking, but that's why now I'd never just have one project. It's too, it hurts too much. So at least if that one's gone, you can grieve, but
you got to be polyamorous, right?
Exactly.
You can't just be in like a monogamous relationship.
No, exactly. You're in a polyamorous relationship with filmmaking. That's great. That's on a t-shirt,
right?
That one for
That's
sure.
it. Filmmaking is polyamorous.
Absolutely.
Yep.
But your
lovers.
podcast, Angle On Producing, is fantastic. It's great. I've had a real good listen, and it's great. And I suggest anyone to go there and do listen to that as well. A link will be in the show notes to that, by the way. Moving on to your second, documentary, if you like, the one that's just come out now, Hysterical.
Yeah, Hysterical.
Amazing. What was the difference between the two then, in terms of you as a producer? It'd be really interesting to know.
I mean, so different, right? Because now that was not 10 years later, but a good number of years later. And now I'm like,
off. Yeah.
Just a very different producer. I was a wee babe back then. And now I feel like I have my sea legs under me a bit, but very different just in terms of like, this was a project I was sort of a for hire producer on. I didn't conceive of this. I wasn't involved with the creative. It wasn't something I thought about. I didn't put the team together. So Campfire, which is the production company, we have been looking for something to do together for a long time. And they're really incredible because Ross Gerard, who's also been on the podcast, who's the head of production there, he's come up freelance line producing. So he gets it. He kind of gets the hustle. He gets the struggle. And he's really great at empowering the producers he brings to run these projects for him to just do it up, you know, and just kind of make it their own and put their own like fingerprint on it. And so he had brought this to me top of 2019, and it took 6 months for a variety of reasons. There was like, you know, director fell out, it was all this stuff, but it was one of those projects that it was a healthy budget for a doc compared to what I was used to. And it came financed, and it was a studio project effectively. Like it already had distribution with FX. So it was very nice to go out to people and go, hey, you know, Fortune Feimster, who's a stand-up comedian, this is a project that will see the light of day. Like there is distribution, like you will get, this will be seen, you know? And I think people knowing that in the doc space makes them feel a lot more willing, especially because no one was paid for that, right? So it makes them more willing to invite you into their 100%. Home and behind the scenes to really capture what we were able to capture. But again, magical. I mean, I got to be the on-the-ground producer. I line produced and was involved with a good chunk of post before the pandemic hit. But, you know, I got to really just, again, dive into the deep end of this world that I love stand-up comedy. I mean, I grew up watching SNL, which I know is sketch, but to be on stage at the Comedy Cellar, to get to be in the presence of these up-and-comers and some legends of the business.
Female comedians.
You're just like, what is my, again, like, it's just, what is my life, right? To get to have access in an unpretentious way, because you're not pressed, you don't want anything from them. You're just kind of there. I mean, it's just a really interesting point of access into someone else's point of view in their life. And so it was incredible, but we shot it pretty quickly. I mean, we started that production September of 2019. And by February, we were pretty much picture locked, which again, for a doc, considering we weren't shooting every day, we were kind of like 3 days here, 5 days there, depending on a veil of like 20 different, very busy women. That was the hardest part of it all, is juggling the calendars and the avails and like, but yeah, it was just, we had very limited windows of shooting. But again, like just what we got was so incredible. But Andrea Nevins, the director, differently from Autism in Love, she already had the structure in her head of these are the themes she wants to talk about. And all of them ended up in the final product, which is not to glamorize romantic stand-up comedy, but to really understand the journey of the journey women, the comedians who don't go on to become Amy Schumers, who don't go on to become these powerhouse names. Hollywood is really good at making you feel like people are an overnight success, or press is always about the positive.
So
and
true.
No one's talking about, like, you know, the one movie that's like, think about like Sundance last year when Palm Springs sold for $22 million. Well, no one was doing an article on the 100 other filmmakers who didn't sell their films and are in debt. You know what I mean? Like, and that's just a reality of the disparity of our business. And I'm not saying we need to like constantly harp on how hard it is, because I think people know and they still choose to get in it. But I think it's important to make sure you're constantly have the finger on the pulse of the realities of what it is. Because if you're just head in the sky, then your feet aren't on the ground. But if your feet are always too planted on the ground, you got to be able to dream a little as well. And I think that balance is, everybody just has to find it for themselves.
Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Have you found the difference between docs and then features, and the bits of telly that you've done and the bits of all the sort of wonderful shorts that you've made and stuff? What would you find the difference as a producer? And is there any specific skills that work one for the other, or like me, you just tie them all into make sure things work?
I think it's so specific to the producer, but for me, like, I consider myself a very nimble, agile, thrifty producer. So wherever you drop me, I'm going to figure it out. Whether you tell me, hey, you have $3 to do this, or you have $300,000, or you have 10 days, or you have 100 days, I'm going to look at the full picture and figure out the best way forward. And that's just kind of how I am, because so much of my career has been getting to play in all kinds of sandboxes. And I've loved getting to do that, whether it's really short form content to digital series, to docs, to like big, union features. I love the stamina and of the race that you have to have for the marathon rather, for the features. And then the sprints, of the shorter projects. I also think you get to kind of collect the people you want to bring with you into your journey and like do the longer ones with. And so I think it's there really is no difference in my opinion. It's just like a shade of the same color is the best I can describe it for me. There's different, the biggest, I guess, difference from a production standpoint is I have learned also the hard way that what a coordinator, for example, and I speak, of course, in the States, I know very little about how the UK functions, but here, like what a coordinator does in a union feature film versus a coordinator in a commercial can often be quite different. And so when I am mounting up a project that is longer, like a feature or a doc, the first thing I do is I have a meeting with the production team I've hired, and I go, hey, like, here's what I'm used to a coordinator doing. Here's what I'm used to this position doing. Is that what you're used to doing? Because I want to make sure we're on the same page and not find out week 4 that I thought you were doing a thing that you weren't doing, So that has been a big lesson for me. I had a feature where that I didn't do that, and I learned the hard way. So
I think that's so important and so lovely to hear out loud. And it's something that's been on my mind for a while, going on set for that first time. And often there isn't time, and we use that as an excuse. But how great would it be if you could go around everyone and say, right, what do you think your role is? This is what I think it is. Can we discuss this? Because we don't want you clashing with that person over there, or clashing with me, or being upset because you don't know where the boundaries are. Let's discuss it. How amazing I think that would be if we could do that. And we should do that. But people don't. Do that. They just presume.
People don't. They just presume. But I think that's where you get in trouble. And also within production teams, people have different styles of working because it depends on how you've come up in the business. Like if you've come up always working in traditional television, for example, you're very used to a certain power dynamic. You're used to delineations of roles and I do this, I don't do that. But I've come up where like if the person isn't available, like I do it all. I do it all. Same. And I can do it all. I don't want to do it all. But then I want to be able to understand, hey, I can do it all, but I want to do this part of the process on this one. And I'm expecting you to do these other 4 things. Is that what you're expecting? And they go, oh yeah, that's normally what I do. And I go, great, awesome. But sometimes you don't get that. And when you're crossing people over, particularly from film and TV, in my experience, that's when you've run into road bumps of like, oh no, I don't ever touch this thing. It's always the accounting team. And I'm like, really? Like I don't come from the world where the accounting team does that, but that's good to know because now I can make sure I'm informed and making those calls. So for me, like I said, on a feature like the one in Atlanta, that'll be I'm working with a team I've never worked before because everybody's local. So that is going to be my first day one. Guys, during lunch, let's talk about this. Like, what is everybody doing? What are you used to doing? What do you hate doing, but you're going to have to do anyway? And what are the things that you're hungry to learn that if I'm overwhelmed, can I throw it on your plate because you get it and you want to get to that next level? Is it like looking at location contracts? Great. I don't need to do that. Like whatever, Who
wants to do that? Hands up.
But
some people do. Yeah.
It is a necessary part of the process that's not sexy or glamorous, but you got to do it. It's got to get done. So I like to really be a collaborative leader in that sense, and hopefully people respond to it and like that, and I don't know. I think it makes the work more fun than like being sort of stuffy about it all. And I don't know, it just doesn't really vibe with my ethos. So
it's lovely. That's really nice. If you could have a billboard anywhere in the world, but everyone could see it, what would you put on there? You can put anything you like.
Something like be kind and trust the process.
Nice.
Something like that, more like eloquently or with a pun in there, or funnier or something. But
the pun in there, definitely. Some IKEA furniture in the background.
Something that would make you go like, huh, and laugh and like, all right, okay.
But it has the thought process.
But it has a thought and a meaning behind it. Yeah,
that's cool. That's really nice.
That's what I'd want.
I love it. And finally, someone coming up in the business right now. Some hungry, exciting young producer who maybe they've just finished film school, or maybe they've just fancied doing this because they've listened to this podcast or your amazing podcast and they went, right, how do I do it? What bit of advice would you give them?
Simple but hard to do, which is start where you are. Like if you can't get to Los Angeles, you can't get to the cities where you think the industry is and where it's all happening. That's okay. What can you create right where you are? I always like to say, I refuse to think things aren't possible. I see opportunity and possibility everywhere I look. If you plopped me anywhere in the planet within a month or a year, I'd be like running something there because that's just how I'm wired. And it's not, like I said, it's not for everybody, right? So you have to really understand if you have the kind of personality type that is required to thrive as a producer. I think that's the most important. And be honest with yourself if that isn't the case. There's no shame in saying, hey, I don't want to be always having to spearhead my own projects and effectively be an entrepreneur. I want to work in a team. I want to work in a company. I want to be like a creative executive. I just want to not be safe because nothing is safe, but just in a more structured environment. And I think that's also valid so that you can decide what path you want to take as a producer. It's something I didn't know coming up, right? I just leaned into what was there. But if you're in a town where that is not like that is so far removed from what's possible, then that's what I would say. Like, look at the projects that you admire. How do you make your version of those films, And if you can't make that, but you have like your uncle has a boat, can you shoot something on a boat? It's a free boat. Like, what could you do if you had one day to shoot on a boat and just challenge yourself in creating great art and really finding the people to take you on that journey? And I think that's where you start. But no, I think that unless you're independently wealthy or a trust fund baby or whatever, you're going to have to do that while doing jobs to pay for your life for a while until those worlds can collide. But if you keep at it, like it 100% will. It's just a matter of time. And then, take care of yourself in that process. You got to make sure you take time so that when you get there, you're not a bitter, jaded asshole. Like,
It's so true. And that thing is, even if you are, you'll be off the set quicker than you can say, build me an arc, And
then what's the point?
What is the point? This has been absolutely fabulous.
Thank you so much.
Do go watch Carolina's work, Autism in Love, or Hysterical, or any of the other. I will put links to all this in the show notes. I'll put a website as well, and her podcast, Angle on Producers. If you want to be a producer, do go listen, do go support. Absolutely incredible. Thank you so much. It's been really, really brilliant. I've loved talking to you. You're really inspiring, and I can see why you'd make a great producer. You can just tell sometimes people have that and the right ethos and the understanding to get shit done, but also make sure it's done in the right way.
No, I mean, thank you so much. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for sharing this space, and for the people listening, for listening to me blabber about. I'm very passionate about it, clearly. So it matters to me, and I'm happy I get to have the good fortune to share it with others, and I hope it helps inform their journey and their path.
Amazing. And where can people find you on the social medias? Give us your links.
Carolina Groppa. Google me, baby. I'm all over there. So I'm on IG. My Angle on Producers is on there. And if you like the podcast, if you check it out, let me know what you think of it. I'm a one-woman band for that show. I do everything alone. So I am looking to grow and add people to help me, because when I'm in production, it's just not possible.
Yeah,
but
I have people do it when I'm in production. I get someone to just put it up because it's too hard. It's too much.
But I love doing it. And so, if people listen and like the show, I just ask that they hit me up, let me know, subscribe to the show. As you know, it's very important.
Give it a 5-star review as well.
Give it a 5-star review. Yeah. And it's a growing, tiny but mighty community that I'm very proud of. And it's for all people, not just people who are interested in producers or producing. I think if you are a creative and a filmmaker, you too can benefit from understanding the nuances of what it means to do this work and what producers look for in those collaborators, which I get asked a lot. Like, how do I get a producer? It's like, well, listen to these other people who are way more impressive than me tell you what they look for, and find a way to create that and be that. So then it's a no-brainer for them.
Totally agree. You can go out there and make your indie film or your documentary or your studio movie. Just know who your audience is and get out there and do it. And if you're lucky enough to rise up and do well, just as Carolina has done, it is your duty to send the elevator back down. We will see you next Tuesday. As always, Carolina Groppa, thank you so much.
It's been amazing chatting to you, Carolina.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure.
Take care, everyone. All the best. Bye-bye.